first became aware of Nigel Howard in those early COVID briefings. At the time, I didn't know he was deaf. I just knew that he was an ASL interpreter. His ASL was very different from any ASL I'd ever seen. I started to do some research and saw that all over the internet, he was kind of blowing up. There were memes, there was like Facebook fan pages.
We started to realize that there's actually a bigger community here and that Nigel's just like one piece of that puzzle.
I reached out to him and I said, we'd really like to tell your story.
This whole story is about trying to give an empathetic approach to the deaf community.
Part of that too was to not only include deaf community members in the process of making it from the start to finish, but also making it accessible for them after the films come out. One of the things we did to get deeper is to educate ourselves ahead of time.
One of my main takeaways is that ASL is one of many sign languages, and that sign language is the native language for the deaf.
I guess I walked into this thinking, oh, like we can do some really cool stuff with like just cool angles, trying to make it different from what we've seen. But the reality of the situation, that would be cutting off half of the communication. You have to be able to frame the entire upper half of someone's body, because if you don't, it's basically like leaving out every other word.
Hi, this is an interpreter called the video relay service.
We facilitated communication over the phone with deaf individuals using a service that is called VRS, or Video Relay Service.
My colleague saying, hi there, this is Ladan calling. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. Hi, Ladan. Nice to hear from you today.
Ladan said she was going to call me, and I actually didn't quite know how it was going to work.
Here in Canada, it's great because deaf people can make phone calls easily through a sign language interpreter. However, back home in Iran, I had to rely on my mother to make calls for me, and she didn't really want to. It was very hard.
One of the other steps that we took in developing this story was attending some cultural and sensitivity training, which was led by a deaf interpreter.
There are a number of organizations that exist here in the Lower Mainland and on Vancouver Island that offer interpreting services. Look to the community for guidance.
When we first contacted Nigel, he drew our attention towards the Island Deaf and Hard of Hearing Center as a resource to sort of bounce off ideas.
Having an interpreter readily available during this process has been great. It's been so important for facilitating all of the interactions with the crew. I've been so pleased with how friendly everyone has been, how well they have listened, and how respectful they've been of deaf culture. It's been truly amazing. I wish everyone was like this crew.
The sort of art of interpreting is to be able to take the concept and to then communicate it in such a way that they fully encapsulate the concept, but it's not a word-for-word translation.
There was a lot of processing time in between question and answer.
When everyone must be quiet on set, I like to lip read people because I want to know what people are saying. I want to know how to respond. And then there's some people, well, I just can't lip read, and that can be interesting. Sometimes I make out what people are saying, but I don't get stressed out about it. I just watch and answer where I can.
My experiences being hard of hearing are different. I'm not quite part of the deaf community, and I'm not quite part of the hearing community, so I find myself sort of in between. If people say something to me and I have to get them to repeat it, it's fine. You should be entitled to that. But I do find that people's patience for it is very low.
And I would really hope that the idea comes down to it's like, maybe we slow down a little bit.
If we had an all-deaf crew, the process would be seamless. The communication would be clear. It would be great for the crew to understand me as a director. If only that could happen. And who knows, maybe one day it might.
I would ask the question in English. Hearing interpreter would take my English question into ASL and communicate that to the deaf subject. The deaf subject would answer in ASL, and then behind me at the video village there would be another hearing interpreter, so their second interpreter, who would interpret it off on a monitor and speak into a microphone that would be looped back into my ear.
You just need to reimagine how can you create movies that are more accessible.
I hope that the next project that wants to do something like this can look to this project and say, well, it's not unachievable.
We have a tendency to use our hearing as kind of a device that's a little bit lazy. I could turn away from you, do something else, and still have a conversation with you.
In my late 20s when I was on sets, people would say, dude, you don't have set ears, man. You gotta be listening. And this is when I didn't have my hearing aids.
There's a need to look at the person, to really focus on the other individual in front of you.
I dream of a world where everybody is equal, deaf or hearing, and I hope one day the world will get it. We're deaf. That's it.